All right. Since we don't understand how to make choices, especially collective choices, I decided to make a video defining how to make choices. Because we are struggling right now with this idea that Trump will become the president based on a popular election that is not even part of the electoral process to determine the president. So we have to understand the difference between who makes the choice and how do they make the choice, and how do you get choices, and how many choices can you have. And there's a difference between advice and consent, by and with, versus confirmation and ratification. And these are the concepts that we have to consider, because who makes the choice of president? The states. This is the United States of America, and the president is the president of the United States. So, yeah, the states make the choice. How do they make the choice? Well, they have to consider a number of choices, and then determine their choice by vote. One vote per state, and a majority of all the states is necessary to the choice. And if you wonder where that comes from, all you have to do is read Article 2, Section 1, and the 12th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States, and it's right there. So if the states, on the day that they choose to open the certificates, which could be today, they don't have to wait till January 6th or whatever day that they choose in January to open the certificates and determine who the president is. They can do it today. The states can do whatever they want, whenever they want. They determine when the electors are selected. They determine when the electors give their votes by ballot. They determine when those certificates are opened and counted. And they determine when the new president is determined, and when they take office. Okay? The states do. It's not. Is it in the Constitution? No. What it says in the Constitution is that the states will decide in Congress when these things take place. There's no specific day or anything like that that is mandated for it. And it can never be, because if there's a vacancy in the presidency before the end of the 4-year term, then they have to immediately elect a new president and vice president, because you can't. There's only one way to become president, and that's not by a succession. You have to be determined to be the president through the process of Article 2, Section 1, the 12th Amendment. Regardless of if I agree with the 12th Amendment or not, which, I don't think I'll be telling a secret, but no, I don't, because it actually changes the process a little bit in a way that doesn't make a lot of sense. And there's really no reason for the 12th Amendment. Like all the other amendments in the Constitution after the 10th, they don't have a reason either. There's no reason for those amendments. I'm talking about 11 through 27. There's no reason for them. So how do they make the choice? And this is the difference. They make every choice by and with the advice and consent of the states as they're assembled in the Senate. Why? Because that's a democracy of the states. All the states are assembled as equals with equal suffrage to reach a majority consensus of all the states as the Union. Okay, that's a straight up democracy. That's the Senate. And that's what the United States is. The United States is a democracy because all the states are assembled in Congress as equals with equal suffrage to reach a majority consensus. Now you might say, but they're proportional in the House. No, that doesn't change the fact that it's still a democracy, because you've got unequal states. So they had to normalize the states by a common factor, which is the population of each state, to truly join them as equals. And that's what they did. So they didn't. They are apportioned representation and suffrage in the House equally, which makes it still equal. Okay, it's still equal. They're on an equal basis. Okay, so it's a democracy no matter how you cut it, because the states are assembled in Congress as equals with equal suffrage to reach what? A majority consensus to determine all questions or all matters. I don't care what it is. That's how they do it. And so when it comes to advice and consent, well, before we get to advice and consent, we'll talk about by and with. By and with is before and during, not after. So before and during making the choice, and to determine the choice, which is consent to appoint that person. That consent is determined by a majority consensus of all the states. By and with is before and during they make the choice. That means that through their advice, they have to determine the process that they will use to consider choices to determine the choice. So, confirmation and ratification are after a choice has been determined. The president nominates. They do not make the choice. You can't, if they only give you one person, they can't consider anything to determine the choice. It's just a yes or no for the person that's in front. And like I said, through their advice, they can tell the president the number of nominees that they want and the qualifications every nominee must have for them to make their choice. Okay? The president isn't making the choice. The states, as the union, are making the choice. Okay? And the same thing goes for the presidency. The electors are determining the choices that the states must consider to make their choice. The states still make the choice. And if you read the Constitution, it says, and a majority of all the states is necessary to the choice. Okay? By vote, one vote per state. And a quorum of 2/3 of the states must assemble to operate that process to determine the president in Congress based on the choices that they get from the states electors. So if they only have one name on the two names, that they look like you haven't given us anything to consider. You can't even by a stretch of the imagination, claim that Trump has a majority of all the electors. They're not electoral college votes. They have to be electors, and the electors identify persons, headhunters. They identify and vet candidates for their state, for all the states to consider. How many candidates can each state identify? Well, an equal number to the whole number of representatives and senators each state is entitled in Congress, which is 11,121 based on the 2020 census, which is the whole number of representatives, which does not exceed one representative for every 30,000 persons which reside within each state. That's how many choices each state can get. Like a state like Colorado might have 190 electors. That's how many choices they can make. And each elector has to make 2 choices, one of which cannot be from their own state. Because, I'm sorry, out of 5.5 million people, if the electors for Colorado don't put at least one of their own citizens on one of their 2 ballots, then we have to have a little talk with them, because I'm sure that out of 5.5 million people, that at least 3 million people qualify to hold the office of the President of the United States. And you're going to tell me out of 3 million people, there's not one of them from Colorado that should be considered to be the president? Okay. You're starting to get where I'm going with this. So if they don't have people to consider, and they've told you how many they want to consider. Under Article 2, Section 1, it's the top 5 persons identified. That's how many they're going to consider, 5. To determine their choice. They'll go through the qualifications and stuff at the CV of those 5 people, and they'll discuss them right there in Congress, and then they'll vote right there in Congress to determine the president. Okay? That's the same way with nominations. If you're nominating to the executive departments, the states would tell the president how many nominees they want, say 3 to 5, for an open position where there's a vacancy. It's his job to identify and vet 5 people that meet those qualifications for that job, for the states to consider in Congress to determine their choice by vote. 1 vote per state, and a majority of all the states is necessary to the choice. If this sounds like a broken record, it's because it is. You cannot make choices if you don't have choices to make, to consider. And you're going to just tell them that, no, you don't get to consider Jack. We already did it for you. Excuse me? You going to tell me who to hire? For my open position in my company? No. And that's the same way it is with the United States. Thank you.